Buddy, this is Cyrus with Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, and tonight let's talk a little bit about soul contracts. We had a member of the Afterlife Topics Facebook group post a link to this horrific tragedy that happened recently in New Jersey. And the point of debate was, does this relate to the concept of soul contracts? So, in the story, a family massacre disguised as a massive fire in New Jersey. So let's see. Basically, this guy is accused of killing his younger brother, sister-in-law, and all their children in their modern Colts Neck Township mansion in the early morning darkness of November 20th, and then setting their home on fire. An attempt, authorities say, to cover up the crimes. He then allegedly set his own home on fire with his wife and daughters inside to try to make it look as if the whole family was being targeted. His family got out of the home safely, officials said. Wow, thank God. So, I say the slayings have shocked the community, and several twists in this case have rattled law enforcement. In just a few days, the odd coincidence, two fires on the same day in the same homes of two brothers, revealed what prosecutors said was one of the most brutal crimes they'd ever seen. So, now let's come back around and talk about soul contracts. So this is an important point to address because there are certain facets of the New Age community that will look at any tragedy, no matter how terrible it is. They'll look at any person, no matter how horrific that person is, and they'll say they're just playing roles. And the soul contract is that we were born to experience what it was like to die in a fire and murdered by one of your own family members. And so we all signed up to play this game. And then once everybody is dead, we can all rejoice in heaven because we finished playing these roles. And we can enjoy paradise where there are no consequences and no responsibility. And everybody is perfect. Oh, what a beautiful post. Blessings, namaste. Beautiful post. So this is how people think really in some elements, some corners of the New Age community. And some of these ideas came about like even through popular books like Journey of Souls, but I think it's been heavily distorted, the information, and it's been really changed, I think, by our own like desires to cope with horror and tragedy. So it's easier for somebody, especially of a shallow point of view, a shallow mind, to look at something horrific and then say, it's all meant to be, this horrible killer is not really a horrible killer, etc. But they don't think out the moral ramifications of this philosophy, that if this were true, then there's moral relativism. We can just do horrible things to each other, which means, therefore, there's no actual such thing as spiritual progression. There's no actual point to being incarnated on Earth. And it also shows that a higher evolved soul can reincarnate as a scumbag killer of children. Right? That doesn't make any sense, but if you ask some people in these communities, that's the case. And we know from like cosmic spiritual law that there's no chance of that happening. You're not going to devolve yourself from being a horrible person, or rather to becoming a horrible person from being in a state of like a higher soul. It doesn't work that way. The whole point is learning self-responsibility, learning lessons, advancing, and not falling into this dark side. And then if you do fall into the dark side, well, we know there's a whole spectrum of the dark astral, of very negative, very scary places on the other side that you don't want to end up at. Horrific places, self-created by the minds, by the most disturbed, selfish, and hateful minds. And it will take a long, long time for the Joseph Menglers and the Jeffrey Dahmers and this guy who allegedly committed these crimes from getting out. And I will say allegedly, innocent until proven guilty. It's still a thing, but it's probably this guy. So in this sense, the soul contract idea defies not only common sense but morality. But does that mean that there's no such thing as soul contracts? No. Not only do I believe that there are soul contracts, I also believe it can involve something as extreme as being murdered. And I think that this could be part of the karmic retribution process. So let's say you are this guy, and this alleged guy who allegedly committed this crime, and then you cross over, and you're in this horrific condition, and you don't know how to get out of it, and you are racked by extreme self-loathing about your actions. It may be that the only way you can forgive yourself is if you incarnate again on Earth, and you're put into a situation where you will likely become the victim of a murder yourself. And then at that point, you will feel like, I feel like I've had someone else do to me what I did to somebody else. Now I can finally begin to move on. So a soul contract may actually fix, not fix, but help an evil person begin to heal from their evil ways. But the big difference is that this does not mean that the killer is also fulfilling a soul contract. It does not mean that the killer is, quote, playing a role, because that would defy spiritual cosmic law. So I would say there's no chance of that. So while soul contracts may exist, and they also may be more like a blueprint, that people can change the contracts, break the contracts, modify the contracts, they can involve extreme things. But when you hear New Agers say that horrible killers are just, playing a role, and there's a few communities that like to, of sketchy, dubious mediumship that like to report this. I won't name channeling Eric, but some of these communities like to drive home this point that horrible murderers are just playing roles. And I would say I call them out on BS. It's total BS. This is Cyrus. I'll talk to you next time. If you like this video, please hit subscribe. Help keep the channel going. You can check out the links in the channel description by clicking on Show More. You'll see afterlifetopics.com. I have a couple of books out there, and my classes that run twice a week, where I talk about life after death. I do lectures, private lectures like this one, private teaching about out-of-body experiences and things like that. So if you like the work, you can pitch in, join the community, help out a little bit. I'll talk to you next time.